Welcome to the Comic Binge. I am your host, Paul Herman, and today I am very, very, very excited to talk about not only just comic books, but bring on a guest that I have really just grown to love on YouTube. I think the best comic channel on YouTube, in my opinion. I've said it before. I've said it to other people. I've been consistent about it, so I'm not just kissing butt. It's what I think. And also, I think a very great human being that I love to have on. And I've been wanting him on for a long time, selfishly, because I just admit it. I like to be selfish. But he's finally back, and we're going to be talking about some fun stuff. But before I get them on, I just want to really quickly do the whole preamble of like, do this, do that, all that, yada, yada, yada. Please go subscribe to the channel. Really appreciate it if you do that. Go check out all the other videos. Again, everyone already has. Super appreciate it. But enough of my BS. I'll bring them on himself. We have Angshuman, aka For the Love of Comics. Hello, sir.
Hello. Thank you for having me on.
Yes, thank you for taking time out of your busy schedule to come on with me. And I try to tell people this too. Thank your spouses. Thank your spouse for letting me borrow you for a little bit. So I know those are always hard things to do. So tell them thank you for on my behalf.
Thank you.
So today we're gonna be talking. We last time we talked about what kind of topics we want to talk about. We talked about our favorite Kurt Busiek comics.
That was a great stream. I had a great time in that stream. One of my favorite times.
That was one of mine too. And so I was like, okay. And I wanted to, it's gonna be hard to live that, live up to that. It's gonna be hard. So
no, we
when
can
I
do
you
it.
Back on, you're like, what kind of topic do you want to talk about? I'm like, well, let's, the lists are good because we are definitely two very different people in the best ways possible. And I like that because I get educated because of what you bring, and I hope, and maybe not vice versa. I have no idea, but regardless,
no, I definitely do.
Regardless, it's just fun to like get different perspectives of what people interpret the comic book medium to be, what it means to them. So, I think you brought up action scenes, and I went perfect because that is a total taste like everyone's in a different on, and we even amongst ourselves, as we're DMing, we're like, well, what are parameters? I'm like, no parameters.
Well, you know me, I'm all about the parameters, and this is, I think, why we have a good time together is because we're such opposites in some ways. You are, of course, no parameters, everything goes, and I'm just like, that's impossible. The chaos will rule.
Which is good. No, I love to have some kind of control, right? But no, you're right. I mean, it's I feel like if the more restrictions we have, the harder it gets. And I gotta tell you, as soon as we agreed on this, I was like I don't know about you, but so many things came to me flooding that I couldn't think. Does that make sense? Like there's so much. I'm like, I couldn't process.
Welcome to my life. That's the way it is with any list, any kind of idea I have at all. Which is why I think most of my videos, which are extremely boring, in spite of very kind words that you said, about half of them is just like about the parameters and about the caveats and about the thinking about it. So
okay, I think
but it's going to be interesting. I think.
Yeah, I think what turned me on to your channel because I'd watch your top. I loved your favorite like science fiction books, fantasy books, and I would just laugh, not at you by any means, not at you. I would just laugh because you'd be like, okay, you set the ground rules, and I'd just be laughing because I could totally see why. I totally understand why you're doing what you're saying, what you're doing, right? Like all the things. I mean, I think it was the favorite fantasy, and it was the Children of the Sea manga, which I bought because of you.
Yes, it's a fantastic manga, isn't it?
Yeah.
You still haven't read it. Well, okay. I think the last time I was on, you were telling me about how you owned Darwin Cook's New Frontier and you still hadn't read it. Has that situation changed in the last year?
Nope.
All right. So like what are we gonna do?
I'm gonna book accountability, Angshuman. We'll talk later. Anyway, but yeah, I mean, I was just, you charmed me because of how like you were to take. I loved how earnest you were being about it, and that's what I love about people in general is they can be themselves and they're not trying to be something else. And I just loved how honest you were about it. And I was like, honestly, I understood exactly, because it is hard to like, well, what is the difference between fantasy and science fiction? Like there is a difference, but sometimes it's like, it's hard. I mean, so yeah, I totally get that. So that's why when having you on is so awesome, because it's going to really change and challenge me what I consider to be like action or whatever, right? Like whatever. That's what I love about different perspectives. So.
Well, I mean, likewise, I think, I'm excited to be here because I am a big fan of the enthusiasm and the passion with which you approach things. And when it comes to words per minute, volume, I think that's where we have the common ground. So
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to this. We'll see who can fit, words in edgeways as the other person continues battling through.
Right. Yeah. No. Yeah. We both love to talk. Which I love. Obviously, I love talking. That's why I'm on a podcast.
I mean, that's what I was saying. I just took many more words to say it.
Oh man. All right. So I'm gonna, if it's okay, I'm gonna let you go first, because I want to let the guests go first. Be nice and be polite.
Okay.
The one I still need to grab the one you sent me. Do you want to do that one first, or do you want me to do a different one?
No. I mean, do you should we start with some questions and parameters and general rules and caveats? I mean, should we at least introduce the topic at hand? What is it that we are talking about today?
Oh, how about you see, this is why I'm all over the place, and I love no, honestly, this is perfect.
Right.
Everyone needs to understand, this is exactly why I love Angshiman on the show, because I'm like, bleh, and you're like, let's just orderly do this, and I'm like,
yes.
No,
It's all a sham. There is no order. But so we're discussing the rules of engagement. Adam, good to see you. So we are discussing 3 of our favorite action sequences. I wanted to make sure that it wasn't our top 3, because I'm not committing. I'm not saying that these are the absolute top 3, but 3 of our favorite action sequences in comics. And we thought it would be a good thing because our reading is so disparate, and like, what do we think about action scenes? It's a thing that everyone enjoys. It's a thing that we have. But I do want to start a little bit by saying, what is action? No.
Is this one of your videos?
When I started thinking about this, once I suggested this and once we discussed this, once I started thinking about this, I was like, I wonder how many types of action scenes there actually are.
Right.
So I was trying to create a category, like a list of categories that how many can I think of? So the ones that I was wondering, maybe we could try a little bit of this, up front, right at the beginning of the thing. So I could think of, there are fight scenes, and I think fight scenes can be, hand to hand or melee and ranged, but I'm going to consider it all combat, fighting and combat. Sure. That's one kind of action scene. I can think of the chase scene.
Okay.
Then I can think of like stealth, maybe. Which is not fighting and not chase, but they're sneaking around, being quiet, or some sort of a robbery sequence can be an action sequence.
No, I agree.
And then I thought about like rescue and aid, or like you got to get to someone or something in time, probably on on the clock somehow, because you're trying to save them either from a bomb explosion. So that doesn't so those are the ones I could think of, but I'm sure there are many, many more. Do you have like, I have fight scenes, chase scenes, stealth scenes, and what did I say? What was the last one?
Sorry. You got stealth, fight, and you said there was like, did you say movement of some kind? Like some kind of like more of like a
chase.
Chase. Right. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So stealth, fight, chase, and I keep forgetting the 4th one now. But anyway, I'll watch the recording later. But are there any other types, or are you not approaching it from this point of view at all?
Okay, so no, and see, this is why I love hearing your perspective, because I went for straight, just like dudes punching each other.
All right, so you went combat.
Yeah, I went pure for the most part, yeah. Which again, one of my picks is a cheat, which I talk about, but I can't wait to bring it up to you, honestly. But I'm like chomping at the bit, you know.
Right.
But
Maybe that's what we should start with.
hi, okay, if you want to,
Oh, you want to have a grand finale. I understand. I understand. All right.
Yeah,
No, but you were saying that you've gone. So we each picked 3 scenes or 3 comics.
yeah,
So we've got a total of 6 to talk about.
yes.
And you're saying that you focused on combat. That is all of the thing. Because, no?
Yeah, no, yeah, pretty much. And but I see, again, I didn't even think about it from your perspective, because again, when I thought about action scenes, I became overwhelmed. I even texted like my other binge people, Chris and Javi. I'm like, guys, I need actually help like figuring out what my favorite scenes are, because I can't think. Like my brain is just like, it's just too much, you know. And it was hard for me to I can't say the word. I'm terrible at pronouncing things. So like compartmentalize, again, I can't say it. You know, all those.
Yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah, like I can't pronounce things. I have a speech problem. I guess.
No, I meant I understood that it's difficult to compartmentalize. Yeah.
Yeah. And the thing is, like, I couldn't do that until I started looking at different books and went, oh yeah, I love this. I love this. So it was hard for me. I wish I had more parameters now, to be honest, Angshima, because now I'm like, man, that's a good point. There's chase scenes. There's a stealth scenes. Like those are all, you're right. Like those are all action, right? I mean,
the funny thing is, I had the same problem as you, is that I was trying to think about, like, what do I mean by action? And I'm like, well, everything can be action in some way. I mean, you know, but what do I mean? So I was thinking that maybe we don't mean action from the point of view, obviously we mean it from the point of view of a movie, really. That's what we're thinking of. We're thinking of action movies and action scenes being things that, you know, plays didn't have action scenes, and even action movies are, anyway, we're not talking about movies, but my point was, when I started thinking about action movies, then I think I got those compartments or something. And I think that it's the same kind of idea as you, that there's so much that I can't, now I'm paralyzed. I don't understand what class. So for me, creating those pockets kind of helps me try to make sense of that. So it's very similar to what you're saying, except, you know, just in a different way. But I will say that it's interesting because I thought, you know, with all the ocean out there, I want to focus in a particular way as well, because otherwise it's, you know, how do you pick 3? So that's what I love doing with my lists. I love narrowing it down in such a way that I give myself a more manageable task. It's still difficult, but, you know, I've tried to whittle it down, and that's part of the fun for me. So I decided that I would focus on one type of action as well. So all 3 of my picks are actually chase scenes. So we've got combat and chase, and I don't have any combat because I had a feeling that you would maybe supply a combat or 2.
You were correct. And because again, we talked about before the show, right? We talked about how I grew up just reading and only read combat. Like that's pretty much what I read, right? So I mean, that was a safe assessment. I think I like that because I couldn't even think about a chase scene right now in my head. I'd have to. I mean, I'm sure like I've read plenty of chase scenes in comics, but I couldn't think about a chase scene or stealth scenes. There's some stealth scenes I could maybe come up with, maybe on top of my head. But yeah, like those are interesting. I love the fact we're getting a different bird's view of that because there's some of your picks. One pick in particular that I'm really looking forward to getting into, or all of them, but there's one in particular I want to get into. So yeah, I love this. Do you want to go first, or you want me to go first? I up to you.
Okay, I can go first. Off my shelves is in the chat. Good to see you, off my shelves. And he's talking about Matsumoto, and so he brings up, like, for example, ping pong, you know, which has fantastic action, and it's sports. So sports, I think, is another kind of action scene because you've got sports sequences, and you've got so many sports comics. I used to read a lot of football comics from Britain when I was young because they were available. So so I'll start by saying that I have narrowed it down to 3 chase scenes, and I've taken a sort of autobiographical approach where I've gone as far as, because as we know, my channel is really much more about reading than it is about. I mean, it is about the comic, but it's that reading experience. And so I
Right.
really like autobiography, and I like talking autobiographically and hearing autobiographical stories. So I'm going to go chronologically. And
Okay.
these are chase scenes that made an impression on me. And they may not even be scenes, because that was another question I had, where, what constitutes a scene? What we were talking about is that, is it a page? Does it have to be an uninterrupted sequence? Can you be cutting? Can it be long? Can it be short? But what I ended up with are really representative. So I'll start with my first pick being when I was very young, and many people who know my channel will know that
Right.
I'm a fan of Tintin, and I've made a number of Tintin videos, and a lot of people watch Tintin. And I have my favorite Tintin is the Calculus Affair. It is the best. This is what in my most recent live stream that I did, in which I did a tier ranking of all the Tintins. And even years ago, when I first started this channel, I had a top 6 Tintin video. So the Calculus Affair is an excellent Tintin adventure. But there, and it's a fantastic chase story. The whole story is sort of a hunt and a rescue mission and things like that. So it has several components in it, and there are, and this will be true for a couple of the other comics as well. There are many sequences in this comic that I think I could have qualified, but I think in my early reading of comics, Tintin made a deep impression on me, and because it showed me a lot of things in comics. And there's a particular scene that I'm going to pick from the Calculus Affair, which is the marketplace sequence. And it is it's a single panel. It takes up about 3/4 of the page, and I can show it in the book as well. And I think everyone who has read Tintin will be familiar with this panel. This will be there in their mind, and it will be iconic in many ways, because there are similar things in other adventures. But this one, I think, is the best one. To me, it's fantastic because as a child, even though I didn't articulate it in this way until many years later, as a child, I was, there's this Where's Waldo aspect to
I
it,
was
where
just
you
gonna
can
say
just
that.
look anywhere on the screen and you'll see some tiny detail, the kind of stuff that we love Jeff Darrow doing as well in the modern
Yeah.
sort of
Mhm.
sense.
Yeah.
It's got that density, it's got that wonderful line work and colors and things like that, but it's a single image. And so therefore, the car, which is at the bottom of the panel and sort of zipping through this marketplace, has been through everywhere where the motion line is.
Oh yeah.
And what's happening over there is sometimes a reaction to the car being there. Sometimes it's a reaction to something after the car has passed, and it may even so like, for example, there's a guy who's jumping into the car. He's not jumping into the blue car after the
Right.
car has passed him by. He's jumping to avoid it. So he's kind
Yeah.
of jumping before. And so time in a single comics panel can be represented. And these are things that we see, and I saw later, where you would have Spider-Man in a sort of silhouette figure or a
Yes.
slightly transparent
Ditko.
figure, and you show
Yep.
3 or 4 figures. So you'd say where he's been, and a single panel could show that by having multiple iterations, but this doesn't do that. So this is a sort of an older style, and I think it may not be in fashion anymore. I don't think I see a lot of this
I
kind of
agree.
stuff, but it's one of the most powerful things in comics, where a single image can have multiple time sequences within it. Something can be 1 second, something can be 1 minute, something, in this case, it's all very fast and instantaneous, but at the same time, the carpets flying up in the air is a much faster action than people who are sort of peeking out from underneath something. And the fact that all of them are put into one thing, and it's the car going through that as it gives chase, the velocity, the movement, the sort of the chaos of it, but also how it draws you in to like get every single detail of it and feel the passage of the car. To me, it made a deep impression, as I was saying, to me as a kid. And then later on in life, I was like, I was used to certain things in comics, or I was able to accept certain things in comics because this worked as that sort of foundational thing. So one of my earliest sort of memories of I would definitely consider this an action scene. There's so much action in it, but the
Dude.
fact that it's an entire scene and an entire sort of chase sequence within one panel is, I think, what really puts it
If you
up
don't
there.
mind, Shimon, do you have the book with you? You can just
Yes,
show
I
the
do.
camera. If you could do
Sure,
me a
sure.
favor, I'll blow you up, and can you open the page? Could the rest of the page? I just
Right.
want to see in context because that's of the actual page itself. Because I love.
Yes.
Here, I'll blow you up here.
And the interesting thing is, in my memory, it was a full page splash,
That's
and
what
it's
it looks
not.
like.
It's like half a page. And the
That's
thing is that it's
crazy.
so fantastic that in half a page it creates that impression. So this is, the album
Wow.
size.
Yeah, I see it's on the left there. So yeah, leave it up. I'm gonna blow up the picture real quick. So this page, everyone. This is what it looks what he picked, and this is what he's holding up. Where in context, it looks like it should be like a whole splash page, but you've got 4 panels underneath it. That's crazy.
And that's also what sort of draws you in. That's what you want to peer
Exactly.
closer at and take it. It's really well composed
Yeah.
in the page. But a lot of these adventures, I think, even at the time of the Calculus Affair, a lot of these adventures were being published in a magazine, so they were published 2 pages at a time.
Mhm.
So I mean, there might be a lot of things that the creator might have done differently in a different publishing arena. So these are 64-page albums that were published
Okay.
2 pages at a time, and so they were drawn a particular way. But yeah, I think given that constraint and given how much they needed to do in storytelling, they still had this the time and the luxury to have gags and little funny things. And this is one of those things which is just a perfect example of densely packed with a lot of gags in it. And but again, as I was saying, this the movement and the fact that it all happens in one panel and still conveys the sort of chaotic energy of a chase scene through a busy market that I really loved.
And this is the book I was looking forward to talking to you about because I have never read Tintin, and it's funny, I forgot about Tintin because the movie came out and there was they tried to push the comics and knew the character through that, oh yeah, whatever. And then I found your channel and you're just raving about Tintin. I'm like, man, this guy loves Tintin, right? And I gotta tell you, after watching all your videos, because I haven't watched Tintin videos, admittedly, because I didn't connect to
Sure.
it or
No,
anything.
I get it.
But I gotta tell you, you're slowly winning me over because
Well,
no, because I saw this panel and went, damn, and I love that you brought the Where's Waldo thing. I'm like, this is totally remind me of Where's Waldo because my daughter, she loves Where's Waldo, and we look at him all the time. So I'm looking at this, I'm like, this looks exactly like that. And so here's really quick, put a bow on this one. Would you say that you said the Calculus Affair is like the pinnacle of Tintin? You think that's the go for anyone?
in my opinion, which
Sure,
is
of course.
the right one.
But
Yes, I will say though, I will say that a lot of this has to do with nostalgia, and a lot of this
sure.
has to do with childhood reading. I mean, there are many of us outside of America who sort of grew up with Tintin, but that's just also a particular generation. It's not necessarily true for today's generation, for example. So a lot of this is cultural, a lot of this is contextual in that way. So I wouldn't want to present Tintin as the most magnificent comics that you can read today compared to everything and all of that stuff. It's foundational, but I think that's why I wanted to start with this also, is that it's part of my memory and it's part of teaching me about comics, and it's really good comics in that way as far as the use of time and the use of using the eye and giving you stuff to look at. But yes, Tintin is good adventures, good fun stuff. It's a little dated, but given how long ago it was done, it's surprisingly not that dated apart from a couple of the adventures.
Listen, it's just like in my music, when I collected records and I don't collect records as much anymore, but I always, even though I may not like was something I would maybe go by myself, I want to have representation of like work that's important, I think, for comic medium. And I know Tintin is important, and at least, and I need to at least try to like consume that at some point. So seriously, I do. I will look for this.
Well, I think you should read the New Frontier first, because that's been waiting for longer. and then add on the new things that you need to get to.
Akshaban, you don't understand me very well, obviously. I know you have the same problem. I keep buying things and I'll read it 4 years later anyway. It doesn't matter,
Sure,
right?
sure. It's an investment in our future.
Oh, fair enough. Yeah, fair enough. In our hopefully near future. Okay. So great
All
work.
right, let me see your number one.
All right,
your first pick.
My first one. I almost want to take a page out of your book here, no pun intended, and and try to go, whatever. But I'm gonna buck that. I'm gonna buck that, and I'm gonna go this way. So this is gonna be a very eye rolling for people, I think, but just bear with me. And like you said of yourself, nostalgia does play a part in it. And this is not a sexy pick. This is not gonna be like a, oh man, that's so, like you said, these are things that come to mind. You're like, oh yeah, that's really good. These are our favorites. These are not I think these are pinnacle, top 5 of all time, right? My first pick is going to be actually a Star Wars comic book from Dark Horse Comics, and it's going to be Dark Lords of the Sith. And this comic is very weird. It's not if you read it at first, it's just it's weird. But there is later on a fight between 2 lightsabers. Sorry, my daughter's playing piano. I need her to stop. There are 2 fights. There are 2 fights between a Jedi Master and a Jedi, or Jedi in training, if you will. And the guy takes on his master and fights him, and we see him take 2 lightsabers. And it is you see here, so my daughter is driving me nuts. She's like,
no, I like you should have that. That's beautiful. Just have that background piano music. I think it's beautiful.
All right, thank you. I'll tell my 4-year-old, but Akshaban loves your piano play. Keep going. No, but if you see here, you see the first time we see in maybe Star Wars history 2 lightsabers together, and this is Exar Kun, who eventually does a double-bladed lightsaber. And he's actually the inspiration for Darth Maul's lightsaber later on, that George Lucas takes from. But anyway, for this page in particular...
Wait, hold on. You're telling me this is the first dual-wielding lightsabers in Star Wars history?
And I want to say that we've captured... Star Wars fans in here, I think this is the first time.
When I was playing Knights of the Old Republic, I used 2 lightsabers.
Yeah.
Oh, this is before Knights of the Old
Republic. Yeah. Oh yeah, thank you.
All right, so you've got history on your side at one level.
So, but what's cool about this one, and I didn't get that because I didn't want to get the next page, which I kind of think I should have now. Maybe I will. I don't know. We'll see. But either way, this is a great representation because this character, he gets his butt kicked by his master with a stick. So, and this is not canon, by the way. This is Legends, so it's not really. I'm not sure how accurate this would be in the real Star Wars world, but as you can see here on Shimon,
what is the real Star Wars? Star Wars is made up. I hate to break this to you.
There's a canon on Shimon. There's a canon. But I know you're not wrong. But the reason I bring it up is because I'm not sure if this would hold up in today's standards, because he, as you can see here, he's defending himself with a stick with 2 lightsabers. But that's what's so cool about that is that he grabs the 2 lightsabers. He force gets this one, and then backs him off, and it takes him 2 lightsabers against his master's 1 stick to finally break it. Because the next page, I didn't grab it, but he takes 2 lightsabers and finally smashes the stick, and then the master's like, "Huh, 2 lightsabers to take 1 stick out," And the whole point was, Exar Kun was that I did it. I took everything I could. I had to go above and beyond. But regardless, the way, and this is what stinks about this is the lady. This is a lady who didn't work very much in comics at the time, and actually got behind and had to leave the title and come back, and didn't really do a lot of comics. But she's a great layout artist and a great artist, because this stuff is fantastic, I think, and it was definitely resonated with me as a kid, and blew me away because I loved how, like you said, visceral.
How old is? Sorry, how old is this comic? When is it from?
94, maybe. I mean, yeah, I know. Right. I know. So, but but the thing is, like, I just love this the whole idea of the two lightsabers had to like go up against a stick. It's very interesting, and I think it's a very dynamic layout, personally. So
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, are you a Star Wars fan at all, Shimon?
Um, that's just a loaded question. I mean, I used to be a Star Wars fan, and then the rest of the world just overtook me, and I was like, I was there first, and then apparently I wasn't hardcore enough or something.
Oh, no.
No, I like some Star Wars stuff. I like the original trilogy, obviously, because they were
Yeah, you
like
grew
the
up. You
greatest
grew up on
movies ever watched. Yeah, that kind of stuff. And
Yeah.
I don't know. Recently, I thought Andor was really good.
Yeah, Ender's very good. That's a
Yeah,
loaded question
that's the
for me.
one. That's the one that I think the first season of The Mandalorian also I enjoyed, but I think a lot of it is sort of.
That's
I'm
fair.
not gonna. I don't want to get into any controversies here, but
I got,
I'm not a
I
big
got
fan
you.
of
It's all good. It's all good.
the Disney Star Wars and the Disney Marvel.
Right. You well, Rob, stay tuned. Anyway, anyway, yes, I know Andor. Yeah. I don't want to get into that, but anyway,
You didn't like Andor, huh?
well,
You're like, oh, Ahsoka is so misunderstood.
Andor is really quick. I love side tangents. Really quick, I think Andor is executed beautifully on better than any Star Wars show on many levels. The problem is there's plot holes in that series that people forgive it for that they wouldn't forgive the other Star Wars shows for because of it's so well executed. But to me, I'm like, there's some glaring things, there's some glaring issues for me that I'm like, what about this? And people are like, oh, don't worry about that. I'm like, what? Like, but anyway, but again, I feel people are harder on the other shows than Andor.
Mm-hmm.
That's what,
right,
and I feel Andor gets a free pass because it's like, it's
right.
high art.
And I think this is because I'm not a Star Wars scholar or fan like you and a lot of other people are, so I would probably not have, because to me a plot hole would be just within the show itself and irrespective of anything else, which is why when you say canon, etc., I completely get it. I understand it. I talk about the Usagi Yojimbo stories that are in canon and not in canon from a particular point of view. But I don't know, the Star Wars canon being determined by which corporation takes over which intellectual property from which other corporation is that's a little too much. I think our head canons and stories and whoever writes good stories is a good story sort of thing. So I don't care about continuity and things like that. You found the next page.
Yeah, I grabbed it. So this is, and I love this. See, this is what I'm saying. Like, she does a phenomenal job of like capturing. And again, there's I love Star Wars posters, right? This feels like a Star Wars poster, like the very bottom of like the two, the Master's head, and then you have the binnow picture of him depicting him from a full body shot, and then him like talking a close up shot. It's brilliant, and it really affected me as a kid because I just loved the fact that we had, again, I'll put the pages back to back here. And this series isn't super great, to be honest, which is disappointing because I think the first miniseries of Tales of Jedi is fantastic comic book storytelling. You've got Tom Veith, rest in peace, who wrote Dark Empire with Cam Kennedy, did a bang up job on this next series, the miniseries. This is the next after the miniseries, which is not my favorite, but you have this picture, the Master, and then he's duking it out, and it takes two lightsabers to finally, break it down and do this. And Master Boss, Boda Boss, I think is or Voss, whatever. I love this alien. I think he looks incredible. So, this is to me some high art Star Wars, in my opinion, and this is some great Star Wars layouts. So, this is my pick. I was a kid.
Very cool.
So, all right. So again, I love we talk about Star Wars in a side tangent and Andor. I do love that, by the way. I do.
Well, I'm on the Comic Binge. You've got to talk about Star Wars at least once.
All right, Akshiman, what's your next pick?
All right, so my next pick is, let's say the Calculus Affair was, I don't know, when I was 6, 7, 8. My next pick is going to come from when I was 18 or 19, when I first read Akira. And it sort of blew my mind. And I think when trying to pick which scene from Akira. It's ridiculous because you could just take, there's so many great action
Mhm.
sequences, but once again, keeping that autobiographical idea, I had not seen anything like this in comics, and honestly even in movies, because movies couldn't do those kind of special effects and couldn't do that velocity and couldn't do that kind of violence in that way. And it was a little later, I think. I mean, the movie had come out, and I was reading the Dark Horse colorized ones. Actually, the black and white edition is out from Kodansha, and this is in the original layout. So you start from the other side and you read it like manga.
Here,
And
I'll blow you up here.
yeah, so it's the black and white.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. I had to get my computer.
Yeah, so what I think, these are just pages that I grabbed online when I found I couldn't scan this too much, but I think these are from, I believe this is the Eclipse, sorry, what am I saying? The Epic Comics imprint from Marvel that did the color version of Akira, and then they had it, localized, as in they had it in the Western style. So they flipped all the images, and they had the left hand side and the right hand side, etc. So in the original black and white, I think is a fantastic way to read this comic. And I think for people who have only seen the movie kind of boils it down to a lot of action and a lot of the chase sequences, the motorcycle through the city, the cyberpunk velocity of it, which this is there. Can you go back to the previous one? This is, I think, the next page. So this it's sort of a 2-page spread.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, so over here, I just picked this because this is just one to pick. This is from issue number 4,
Mm-hmm.
and Kaneda is being chased down this tunnel, and you've got these 3 people coming after him in that tunnel. And this is a 2-page spread as from the point of view of like that panel is over there. But what I really loved about this, and I think I've seen this now a number of times in movies and comics, but I think this was the first time I had seen this, is when he makes his stand with his back to the wall, and he's got this huge, like, I don't know, magnum in his hand, so like it's a hand cannon. And then when after that, come and get me suckers, he lets off that shot, and he's pushed backwards. He's like lifted off his feet by the kick of the gun. And so the gun is now facing upward, but the muzzle flash is where it was when he fired the trigger. Again, I think, the use of time over here, the gunshot creating that recoil thrusting him off, that made, you've got this intimidating long panel of these guys bearing down on him, and you've got him with his back to his wall. They're firing at him. That machine gun fire are those small sparks to the right of him in the bottom right panel. And then you've got him letting off that one shot and being thrown backwards by that shot, that velocity. It's fantastic. And then you turn the page to get to the next image, which shows you the impact of the bullet.
Yeah.
So that's the one that you were on before.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Let me get that. I'll get back to that one. What I love about these kind of pages, when like the panels overlap to multiple pages, but the bottom panels are continuing the page or the story essentially, right? I love that. I think I love it when comics do that. I think it's so brilliant. All right,
and that's where some things like binding, etc., comes in. What I realized, that a lot of the American superhero comics I read had those kind of constructions, and they had that kind of thing. Like there were some people who were very good at it. I can't remember now, but maybe George Perez had a couple that really struck out to me. But sometimes when you bind them into a TPB that's a little too tight, you kind of lose that, because that
Yes.
one image that was supposed to be over 2 pages, you're
Yes.
kind of getting 3/4 of one and 3/4 of the other, and it's sort of interrupted, and then it confuses people because they read half of a panel and then they continue down, then they read the other half of the panel because they didn't realize it was supposed to be one image. So yeah, but over here, sorry, there's a little tangent into production, but
No, I love it.
but over here, you've got that, that pock where that bullet that he fired from the Magnum just kind of breaks the the front part of that scooter thing, and then bullet wound in him, and there's just that question of like, huh? It's like it's so you've got those explosions before, and you've got that gunshot, sort of throwing him backwards, and then you've got the it's such that contrast, when you turn the page, and then you get this huge explosion from, and this entire sequence, like so many other sequences, just so kinetic, but it's kind of like watching Fury Road. It's like
Absolutely.
no matter how kinetic it gets, you can always tell what's going on. It's so clear, and you can see that this is the consequence. He crashes in over here. That guy tries to dodge him, scrapes against the wall. His face scrapes against the wall because he's off balance, and he crashes. Like everything has consequence. And again, for me, it was sort of mind blowing to see this and to understand it. And I think it's a sign of the power that even so many decades later, it still has that power in that comic's storytelling. And I think the comic is a lot more dense than the movie is. The movie does boil it down to action quite a lot. A lot of the more political, philosophical, and character entanglements of the comic are not there in the movie, but the movie definitely captures this kind of velocity. And the movie is directed by the same person who did the manga. So
Oh,
they
really?
really,
Wow.
yeah. So Otomo knew how to translate his work,
Work. Yeah.
and it's one of those few things where it's as fantastic a movie as it is a comic, even though they're quite different. As in, it stands as one of the greatest movies ever and as one of the greatest comics ever at the same time, which most
That's cool.
things don't do.
Well, it's funny because I have Akira's been on my list to pick up for a while. I have a little like a list, and usually I look for it. I thought I bought it. I thought I bought it, and I was like I didn't get it. I've been meaning to read this for a long time, and I need to read Akira. I've only heard great things about it, and I'm not anime. I've never been. I've gotten more into manga, thankfully, in the last 5 years than I have ever before. Anime, I'm not. I just for whatever I don't know, whatever reason I can't connect to it as much. I like animation. I like animation, but I don't know. I don't really feel I want to watch it. It's hard for me to watch anything these days anymore. So anime is even harder. But the manga, I really appreciated the artistry and the storytelling of the layouts like this. That I think manga artists are just so much better. It seems like it's telling these kinds like just storytellers of a page than a lot of mainstream comic book writers or excuse me artists that are out there. And I think I've said this before. I think that like sometimes manga artists can like tell more on a page in 3 panels than like comic artists can do with infinite, whatever. It's like they can just do they can do so much with so little. It's incredibly impressive to me. And so I need to get off my butt and read Akira finally. So I need to do it. So this is fantastic. I like you though. Black and white is where I'd want to go. I would not. Color's fine, but black and white looks incredible.
Yeah, and I think the coloring is not offensive. Sometimes people do a coloring job that is, it's borderline blasphemous. But this is the same. This is the page that you were showing just before this.
Yeah, I'll go. I'll blow you up.
Yeah.
Hold on a second. Keep it up. Keep it up. All right, there we go. All right, keep going. Oh, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, so you can see that even though the coloring is not bad, it does obscure some of that line work and that dynamism. I mean, I think particularly of the explosions and things like that. I mean, you do get that nice orange incendiary look, but I really think this way of reading it, because it's available. I wouldn't say that
Right.
don't read it no matter what, etc.
Right.
Unless it's in black and white, but it is available. It is there, and it's phenomenal. I mean, the whole book is full of
Gorgeous.
scenes and sequences like that, and the story, the plot of it is quite interesting as well. But the dynamism of the art and the action, I think, is really what makes what gives the comic at least
Yeah.
half of its reputation.
God, it looks gorgeous. I mean, like, and this is one thing that I've learned in the last like 6 years, because I grew up on color, and I used to be like, I don't want to read this in black and white. Like, I'll be honest, like that's just what I was like, until I realized I was being a dummy, and how much detail is lost in the line work with black when it's colored. To be quite honest, I mean, a good color job, you can keep a lot of that, but this is not always the case. And when I started reading manga, in fact, it was through manga. Oh my, what the hell is it called? My friend made me read it. Oh my god, Biomega. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that at all. It blew me away how good it looked. I'm like, this looks incredible. And then and then also I Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, that stuff would look not as good colored, So put a pin in that. But no, like it was, yeah, black and white is where I'd go. And that those pages you're just showing me on the screen looks incredible. I mean, I need to read it, Kira. It's too long.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting you should say about black and white. When I was young, I used to read color comics because all the comics for children were color. There was, I didn't know anything about it, but at a certain point of time, I discovered X-Men, and I really enjoyed X-Men. So I would read X-Men from friends of them who had them, etc. Then I found these old British X-Men that were published. They were reprinted in the UK,
right?
But probably, and they somehow found their way to India. But somehow, but I think for cost purposes, they were printed in black and white. Mm-hmm. Now, me being, just a young kid or something like that, I thought they were so old that they were made when comics used to be black and white, like TV, like like how you have TV shows and things like. So I mean, like first of all, we had a black and white TV, so I was quite old before I realized that Star Trek wasn't a black and white TV show, because you'd have something like I Love Lucy and then Star Trek, and you'd be like, I guess they're all from the same time or something like that. But the thing was that when I read those black and white X-Men, I was just like, they're in black and white, and I guess fine, but it's X-Men, so I have to read it. And these were these early X-Men stories of the first, stories
Jean Grey,
right, the Beast and Iceman, and and this is before Beast had its form, so they all had the black masks on.
I love
and things like that. The classic,
yeah.
And it looked really good in black and white. So much so that later, when I read those early X-Men stories in color, I found myself not liking them as much, maybe again because of nostalgia, but the black and white, it made me feel the musculature of the Beast and things like that in a way that the color ones were, the yellow, etc., got a little. But the essential comics that have them in black and white, I think, are a perfect gateway for you to like this. Look at that. You shouldn't have any resistance when you've got things like that.
No, and this was a special one, really quick. Little side tangent. This is the comics where it's this is the essential collection where Gwen Stacy dies. So it's Gil Kane. So this is not line work verbatim because it's inked, right? I mean, whatever. But like, I mean, this is about as close to the line work as you're gonna get with the stuff, right? So you're not in colors it can ruin whatever, but I mean, to see this in its true form, to be honest, like it's gorgeous. It is gorgeous, and I love black and white more than ever now. And I'm really, I found this for like $15 at a half price book. So I was like, yes, please. And take my money. This is just gorgeous, gorgeous stuff. I mean, by the way, I'm gonna blow myself up real quick. This is one of my favorite Spider-Man panels of all time.
Is this your second pick? Your second favorite action
This is a side tangent.
Is the death of Gwen Stacy?
No, side tangent. But if you I'm not sure how well you guys can see here, but
that's.
Sorry, guys. I'm trying to get. There we go. See that where you see Mary Jane,
Hmm.
and she's like talking to Peter, and she's talking to him, and you can't really see very well. I'll probably try to get it like this, but you can see here she's like talking to him, and he's just uncontrollably sad, and she closes the door, and this look at the way that she closed. It's just oh god, it's gorgeous. I just think that looks incredible. Like I just love the emotion that's all built there in 3 panels, and just how she's just like she's just gonna let him. She's gonna be there for him. I love that, and that's comics right there. Like you're not gonna get to me a performance and an emotion captured like that in film. It's gonna be really hard in movement to get that connection of what Mary Jane is accomplishing in those 3 panels. So anyway, just wanted to show real quick. See that in black and white is chef's kiss. So just wanted to throw that out there. So I apologize. A little side tangent. I apologize. All right, it's my turn. Rob, are you still there? If you're still there, please show yourself because you're gonna want to see this. Hello. Yes. Yeah. I wish I was more involved with manga early on because I was foolish not to be as much. So, yeah, I agree.
I'll also say that I think what happens with color, and of course this is different because you have great colorists and people who can do this, but color tends to flatten things out, and black and
Exactly.
white has the contrast, which creates a certain sort of depth. So black and white and color have very different powers. So it's not a question of better or worse, but I definitely think that when appreciating things like what you were showing of Mary Jane in the foreground and Peter in the background, even though they're the same line weight, there's something about the black and white that I think if
Yes.
we looked at that panel in color, it wouldn't have the same sense of depth. I get the feeling.
Yeah.
Because the
Yeah.
four color, the very broad, the very bright sort of comics colors tends to everything is the same vibrance, and so therefore everything is at the same level,
Right.
and then it's not in layers. That's my non-artist, non-technical way of
No, it's
thinking
beautiful.
about it.
Yeah, no, you're on the money. So my next pick is Rob, who Sketchcraft, who I love Rob very much. Rob is awesome. He's working on a Spawn comic that's coming out pretty much next couple weeks, which I'm excited for. So Rob, I've been on his channel a bunch. Love you. Rob, get in here right now. If you're not, I'll be upset because you mentioned one of my picks and you're gonna be very happy. And that would be Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is, I think, just my opinion, one of my favorite comics ever. Just me personally. How familiar are you with the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
I read the first the original stories that IDW reprinted in that first volume, and then the second volume went like out of print or became unavailable before I could get to it. So I haven't read any of the new stuff, and what little I know of them really comes from the movies.
Sure.
Including that fantastic second movie. Oh my god, that was so great. No, way back in the day. I'm not even talking now. I realize there's an entire new trilogy, or maybe there's two new trilogies. I'm so behind. I'm thinking about The Secret of the Ooze with Vanilla Ice
I love
performing on the soundtrack.
Yeah, go ninja, go ninja, go.
Yeah, well,
I love. Listen, it's
but
bad.
yeah, I'm not. But I did read the original issues, which are very different from whatever the cartoons and the later television stuff. It's a lot more, sort of gritty in a particular late 80s, early 90s sort of way.
Okay, so you said you read volume 1 of the original Laird and Eastman stuff, right?
Yeah.
Okay. It sucks because the issue I'm talking about comes from volume 2. So if you only read volume 1, which volume 1 I think is good, and it's important for the history of comics because it's independent and it caught on fire and it's super fun, but I don't think they really start hitting their stride until later. And
I know somebody told me that after I couldn't get my hands on volume 2, and I was like, "Thanks a lot." That has helped me,
homie. Like I'm pretty sure I got this pretty easily. I thought, but maybe I'm wrong. Okay. I don't know. But this is not.
This is from IDW.
Yeah, this is
Oh,
from
maybe they brought out the paperbacks. Because I was buying them when the hardcovers came
hardbacks.
out.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
maybe, yeah. All right,
yeah.
now I'll get to
These are
volume 2 in
paperbacks.
paperback.
Yeah, and they're great. I got them all, and I read to give you guys a full history of this, because I know you guys all want to hear my history. At least you do. I know you
That's
do.
what we're here for.
Yeah,
What else
exactly.
are we doing here?
I know, right?
It's like 11 o'clock on a Saturday? Of course, let's go.
Okay, so I bought these on a whim through Comixology, and I like digital comics. I don't prefer to read digital, but at the time, my wife had she quit her job and was trying to find a new career, and I was like, I gotta be mega cheap. And digital comics, thankfully, are really cheap. Comixology had a huge sale on, I think the first new movie was coming out, the Michael Bay one, and so Comixology had a huge sale of all these, and I bought them all for like $5 a piece, each volume. And I started going through it, and I just that first volume is not bad. But I just kept going because I was enjoying it, and it was black and white. I was getting into it, and I got to this one, volume 2, and all of a sudden I was like, I burned through. Like, I think I burned through like the next 4 volumes in like a weekend. And wow. and the thing with me, I definitely read digital faster, and my ADHD just does that. It's just what it does. And man, I gotta tell you, I burned through those comics like crazy. And yeah, thank you. See, off my shelves, my boy. That's awesome. That's awesome. Like, this issue is incredible. And I said this is the cheat I was telling you about earlier, Angshiman. This is kind of a cheat because this whole issue is like basically one action scene.
Right.
And I gotta tell you all, like, this stuff is incredible. Basically, Leonardo is by himself, and Angshiman, I'm not sure. You remember the first movie at all of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles? Do you remember?
Sure.
Do you remember that Raphael gets attacked? He's like being like the loner, and he gets attacked by himself, and he gets beat up by all the. Yep. That is lifted from this issue, because the first movie is basically the comic books just adapted and modified a little bit. Right. Instead of Raphael, it's Leonardo in the comic book. He's by himself, and there's no sound. He's just getting attacked by the Foot Clan, and he's just kicking ass for like 20 pages. And it is some of the best looking action scenes you could ever find. I don't want to spoil it. Like, you got to read it or look at it. It's a page turner. And I got to this comic, and what's interesting is that as they're doing their main series, they're releasing every hero, like every turtle has their own story, and they're all fun. Like, they're all very fun in what they do. But Leonardo's is extremely special because I believe the Foot Clan comes back for the first time through this. It's like the revenge issue, if you will. So we don't see him for a long time after we read the original Shredder issues, and all of a sudden he gets attacked out of nowhere. And what's cool is, and this is why Eastman and Laird are effing legends, and I love them because they love comics, right? They're doing this because they love comic books. As you can see here, at the bottom, like, so the whole time you're reading the issue, right? The whole time there's like April O'Neil and the other turtles are having their own story. So as they're talking, you have like, oh, where's Leo? And they're having like this kind of very casual, fun, like, time while Leo's getting his A rung, or kicking ass or whatever, throughout the entire issue as like a dueling narrative. And it's just chef's kiss how they execute it. It is beautiful. And that's why it's kind of a cheat. It's like, because the whole issue is basically an action issue. And I think this is
I think that's not a cheat. Why should that be a cheat? It's an action scene. There you go.
Yeah. So I cannot recommend, and it's so funny because Rob mentioned it. I don't know if Rob's watching. He hasn't commented. He must be busy. He's too busy drawing comics, actually doing something actually good for people. But like, the thing is, this is yeah, exactly. Look at the little cute little fella. Like, again, the depiction of like this gruesome, massive fight above it. And I love that idea of this whole dueling narrative throughout the entire issue. of like a fun time to this horrid time. It's just brilliant. And this is, we look at the first movie and we always hold it in such high regard because it's a good movie, but it's literally the comic books, literally adapted. Like it's literally like this whole, like the whole time, like in the movie, you're cutting back and forth between Raphael and the turtles and April, just like in the comic book. But and it works in the movie well, but the comic it's way more artfully done, in my opinion, and just way more brilliant in this context. Yeah. And so, yeah, I'm sure get on there, get this volume at least. It's really good. I mean, it gets a little kooky at the very end of the volumes, I'd say, but like in the end, I'd say it's these are must-own comics. If you love the comic medium, I'm saying for everyone, not just you, anyone, if you love comics, you owe it to yourself to reading these original Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle comics. So they are brilliant because once they start getting cooking, they are effing brilliant. So Leonardo,
all right. I mean, I'm sold now. I just have to find a copy of Volume 2.
I gotta get it for. I gotta get you. Guys, get on it. Go get this, man. Comics, yo. I mean, seriously. Yeah, well, exactly.
No, that looks great, and I'm a big fan of because I thought you might have more than one, but where the action scene is the entire issue. There's something. It seems a little excessive, and I think there have been times, particularly I think in the mid-90s, where there were just too many of them, where every single issue was just one big fight. But there are ones that are done very interestingly, and I was looking at some more recent comics, and I think Hawkeye back in the day when Matt Fraction was writing it had a couple of great issues which did experimental things. I saw a couple of Nightwing issues that were quite interesting. Yeah. So from that, I'm quite a fan for those kind of gimmicky attempts that really pay off because you got, so that looks right up my alley actually.
No, I promise. If you liked the first volume enough, like it didn't maybe set it on fire for you, but you liked it, I think that second volume you'd be like, oh, okay, I get it. Like I get it now, because as I was reading this, when I first read it the first time, I'm reading it, I'm like, this is literally the movie. This is literally the movie, and I'm like, it's as good, if not better. I mean, the original Eastman and Laird stuff is so good. I love Ninja Turtles. I need to read more. My Rob, who adores the Ninja Turtles, who I was mentioning, he gets mad at me because I love the new IDW series that's coming out. It's very good too. I mean, it doesn't hold the candle.
A lot of people say that's really good. I mean, everyone I know who's read it, it's
very good. It's very good. Like it's not, and I'm not just talking about The Last Ronin. I have not read Last Ronin. I'm saving it for a special, thing, in a little bit. But but I say for everything, pretty much. But anyway, yeah, the IDW series is good. I have like the first 3 complete volumes of it, and I've read like digitally a ton of it already, and it's very good. But these are definitely where you need to go if you're a comic book fan. So definitely go check out the volume 2 is where this issue lies. All the solo series, the one-shot solo series are really good from Eastman and Laird. They're all fun, very different from each other. But this is this is like the GOAT in my opinion. So yeah. Anyway, love this issue. I go read it, Angshuman, and then holler at me.
Very cool. I will.
Yeah, yeah. That's a good point. Very good point. All right, so we're on your last. Sadly, your last. I'm bummed. Your last pick here. So what?
Well, yeah, because I'm talking about one comic at a time, unlike the host, who's exercising their complete domain. Let's talk about all of these now. Why don't we?
No, don't call me out.
Sienkiewicz's Moby Dick, fantastic action sequences. Oh my God, the harpooning action in this.
You're calling me out. No,
I'm just teasing, of course. But I did want to say before I get to my last, because I am taking that autobiographical and chronological approach. That because I saw someone in the chat mention about an hour ago or something mentioned Spider-Man versus the Juggernaut, and it would have so to fight the Unbeatable Four, is such a favorite comic of mine that I have an entire 20-minute video dedicated just to that one issue, which is, the second part after Nothing Can Stop the Juggernaut, which is something I read many years later. I read part two,
Right.
when I was young, and I read it over and over again. So that's fantastic action. I really. I really thought that issue in which he's just fighting the Juggernaut all the way through New York City as he's trying to get to Black Tom and the harbor, and Peter's trying to
Good.
stop him, it was just like he takes a pounding and he keeps getting up and he keeps going. But the action in it, the way he jumps, and then it's a vertical, like a long vertical panel to show you the height that he's jumping, and
Yeah.
the truck hitting and exploding, every single thing in that comic.
Oh,
So
good.
that's definitely an honorable mention of mine. But since I've already spent so much time gushing about that, so what I'm going to do for my third pick is, like, I started with the Calculus Affair, which is like a childhood favorite but very formative. Akira in the middle, sort of again very formative, and now I'm going to sort of catch up, sort of with where I am in life. And Last Man is a series. It's a French comic,
Okay.
and from what I understand, Balak Sanlaville. I got into this because of Bastien Vives, who's a writer-artist whose work I have really enjoyed. And then I heard that he was working on a very manga-influenced fight comic. And I was like, all right. But Balak is apparently a French superstar of animation, and Sanleville is a French superstar of video game design. And so the two of them have collaborated with Bastien Vives, who's a French superstar of comics. So you've got like these three different medium champions being coming together to make this comic, which is a superb comic. It's very unlike many things I've read, although it heavily borrows from things, and it is an action comic. It's about fighting, but it's almost like arena fighting and gladiatorial combat, but it's represented in a very manga-esque fashion, the way you might see it in things like Dragon Ball. Or I'm not a very big anime fan either, so my references will be limited, but it's obviously something that is very influenced by that and feels like that, but it has a distinctively, for lack of a better phrase, European flavor. But what I have enjoyed about this comic, and I believe, and I could be wrong about this, but what was really irritating to me was that First Second was publishing the series in English, and they got to volume 6 or volume 7, and they stopped publishing it, and they never continued. And it's a series that has gone on and continued and finished in French, but in English it's sort of, which is, and I was enjoying it so much. But I've heard recently that Robert Kirkman's Skybound is going to be bringing it out in English.
Oh, no way.
So they're going to do the whole series in English, which means that my 7 volumes are going to have to sit on the shelf, and I'm going to be double dipped again because I have to finish the series. So what am I going to do? But I wanted to talk about this because this was a surprisingly entertaining read for me. It was the story and the plot of it is twisting and continuously surprising. But what I felt was the strength of this comic that I was least expecting was how good the action was by someone who I know as you were saying, an artsy fartsy type, someone who does these kind of
Don't call me out.
well, I mean, you probably didn't say fartsy. That sounds
No,
more
but
like
I
me,
probably
actually.
did.
Yeah, I'll add the flatulence. You just said artsy. But the idea being that I love the dynamism of this, and so instead of where I could have gone for an action sequence that takes many pages, I actually want to just look at one panel, which as an adult, it's the top panel on this page, and it's one of my favorite single panels that I've read in recent years. It's superb. It's the mom and the kid are being accosted. So in the previous page, there's this giant bulking guy, cop, sort of, trooper almost, shows up, and he's trying to grab them. So he lunges forward, and she does a slide between his legs, and the kid takes off from his side, and then they're running. So the second panel below is a continuation, but this panel is superb. This is action, and it's a loosey goosey art style. So
Mhm.
you've got various conceits in it, like the background character may not have eyes, and the forms are a little, but the line work in it is
Yeah.
the stuff that I like is the stuff that I keep using the phrase deceptively simple, because there's things that look simple, and then when you look at them and they're like, that's not simple at all. I can feel that slide. I can feel the friction. I can feel the velocity because of the way her hair is flying back. And it's not that perfectly chiseled, modeled action figure movement,
Sure.
which seems very static to me. Even the guy falling over backwards, tumbling. But it's really this to me is, as you were saying, why do we love comics? This, I think, is a fantastic example. It's a perfect
Absolutely.
example for me of how one panel, one frozen image can be an action scene in comics. And I've rarely seen it done better than this.
That is a very striking image. I mean, like, and this thing is, I have not, I had no idea what the heck this even is, Angshuman, and that's why I love getting people like yourself on here who don't just read the same superhero comics that I love to read, because this is automatically has my attention, and I'm like, damn, I need to check this out. And you're right, like this page is very interesting. It's very unique the way it's very manga, excuse me, influence, like as people are saying, and you've said. But this panel, like you said, like, but it's not just manga either, right? Like there's something different about it, There's something a little more, I would say, not like again European, if you will. Like there's that European influence there, I think, and I love it. I love this. It's so dynamic, and that's the thing about comics that I think why we love to talk about it so much is that some people, this medium is such a unique medium, and we could go on for hours why it's not as big as it needs to be, at least in the American world. And I don't know about India or how popular comics are either, but you know, but I would say like this, what you're able to capture in one panel, much less a layout, and how you can just focus in on this particular page and action sequence conveys so much detail that we subconsciously don't even realize, right? And I think that's what's so beautiful in this panel specifically. I have no idea what the story is, but you immediately already get like how, like, from this, what that main character is, what they're doing, all that stuff. And it just, again, like this is there's a uniqueness to it, and you could just get drawn in just by a picture. And that's what's so pivotal about going to comic stores and just when you go flip through random books. At least for me as a kid, so this would grab me as a kid. And then I'd be like, oh, maybe I should read this. And you want to pick it up. Like, that's the thing about comics. You have to actually read and get into a story for prose. And again, everyone knows people who watch the Comic Binge, the whole three people, and I love you, three people. But like, well, no, I can't get into prose because my ADHD brain, I don't process words like descriptions and things like this. Whereas I can just look at this and it immediately grabs me. So I love the way this looks and how dynamic it is. And it draws me right in. I want to know what the hell is going on. Like the way, because of the angles. Go ahead, please.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I was just going to say that looking at this, I was focusing obviously on the panel I really love, the above, but it's the
Sure.
sequence, and it's a sequence of these two, where the perfect idea, again, a very good example of what Scott McCloud calls closure in understanding comics, of what's happening between the panels is being created by the reader. It's not on the
Mm-hmm.
page. So on the first image, you've got her sliding forward, and she's sliding forward at a great velocity with her ponytail flying, and the kid, off on one leg and completely leaning forward. Now, if you go to the second panel, now this is outside the shop or the bar, wherever they were, and
Mm-hmm.
they're running, and now she's leaning forward
Mm-hmm.
on that leg, and she's completely arced forward, and she's almost yanking the kid off his feet.
Mm-hmm.
So what happened between there is she completed her slide, picked herself up, and achieved enough velocity from the slide to be moving forward so much that that kid who's moving that fast needs to be yanked and pulled even further. That third panel isn't on the page. It's in our brains. It's in our imaginations
Mm-hmm.
engineered by the two panels that the comics creators have
Yeah.
decided to put. And that, I think, is what gives the comics action scene the power, the velocity, because it's in our heads and because we've manufactured it, it's perfect. You know, it doesn't need the shading and the other special effects stuff that has to be done absolutely right. It doesn't need the lighting to
Mhm.
match and the frame
And
rates to be lined up or anything like that because we've already done it. And that's why when I watched movies as a kid, they never looked as cool. The action never looked as cool as comics did because I was creating. It's only today that we've gotten such,
closer.
frame by frame animation that we're
Yeah.
able to do that kind of, we've got those physics and it'll still look odd. I mean, like, I
Sure.
love the second X-Men movie, but it looks odd when Wolverine, sort of leaps from one end of the room to the other. We can all tell it's wires. It doesn't look like a real jump because movies have those limitations. And when someone jumps in the comic, when Spider-Man jumps, 3 floors, it's like it's perfect because it's in my head. So I think engineering that head action is where comics' power is. And I really like these two panels as an example of not just the velocity and the action that they show, but the velocity and the action that they imply and create between them.
Yeah.
Which is, where the magic is for
Yeah,
comics.
absolutely. Yeah, brilliantly said. And this is why, again, I love having you on because you understand the medium in a way of a like artist way that is you can just explain it to people. And I love that. And I love the fact that we need more people out there to help explain why the medium is so amazing and not just because it's good, but like explain why. Like you just did a masterful job. Like if I could, my boy Adam might be listening.
There's nothing original in it. It's
No, no, no,
all,
doesn't matter.
plagiarized from various
Take
places.
my compliment, damn it. No.
Okay, fine. Thank you very much. But
No,
uh,
Adam, if you're hearing this, please clip that for me, please. You killed it. I love this. Like, this is great, and then you beautifully set up what makes this medium so special. Honestly, and I mean that seriously. It's awesome. Anything else you want to add with this story, really quick?
no, I look forward to completing it whenever Mr. Kirkman helps me out.
Man, helps when you have deep pockets, right, man? Kirkman's just like, oh, I wanted this thing. I'll just throw it out there,
Yeah,
He's that Walking Dead money. Be like,
yeah.
oh, we don't know if this will make any money, Kirk. Oh, hold on a second. How's that? Okay, this is good. This is good. Thank you, Walking Dead. Which I'm excited because now I will pick it up. So thank you, Robert Kirkman. All right, my last one, the last one of the show. This is I apologize in advance for everyone because it's people are gonna say this is lazy. People are gonna say that I'm just like, oh, it's because of the movie, blah blah blah. Like, there are gonna be a lot of things, but Auction will tell you. I talked a little bit about this and teased it that there was a comic I talked about that I still have today. I wish I could find the original somewhere. I have it somewhere, but I have this comic I grew up on. Okay, and people who listen to me talk about this, we have not done a full breakdown of it on the binge. I'm waiting for it to get more subscribers and more of a following because I'm just like that or whatever. But this comic's one of my favorite comics of all time, and it's people will say like, oh yeah, big shock. But listen, I grew up on this comic. I read this comic when I was or I say read, meaning I looked through this comic when I was in kindergarten. Okay. And I probably shouldn't in first grade. I shouldn't be reading this comic when I was in first grade, but whatever. My mom's liberal. What can I say? And these images were stained in my brain forever. And you probably already can, if you watched videos or can look around a little bit, you probably already know what it is. And that would be Dark Knight Returns. And that would be, yes, the cover photo itself.
Yeah, you put it in the thumbnail.
Yeah, the thumbnail. Thank you. The thumbnail of Batman beating the royal crap out of Superman. And I just and listen, the reason why to me this is such a pivotal. Like, listen, this is BVS movie, whatever. Get that out of your brain, because this comic book is, I think, one of the best comics ever made. And I know Frank Miller's a little bit of a controversial these days, it seems like. And I listen, I'm not going to defend everything he says or does or done, whatever.
Especially that movie, The Spirit, that he directed. It's absolutely unforgivable. I mean, there's just no way you can forgive him for that.
I bought it on Blu-ray used like years ago, and it is so bad, but I like it because it's so bad. Like,
oh my gosh,
like it. It's
all right.
It's bad.
I thought we could be friends, man. What the heck?
I know. Hold on. You want to say hi?
Hi.
Say hi.
Who is that?
That's Oxymon.
Who
say hi,
is that?
Hi, Action.
Hi. What's your name?
What's your name?
Lulu.
Lulu.
Good to meet you, Lulu.
Hey, I gotta finish up. We'll be done in a little bit, okay? What? But what? I gotta go. I love you. Go see mama. Okay, go see mama. Go. Love you. Oh God. Okay, hold on. Hold on. Go see mom. Go see mom.
Just give her a copy of your Dark Knight Returns. I mean, you think that's age appropriate, right? Yeah.
Hold on. Mom's here, so hold on. Anyway,
all right, everyone.
Yeah, sorry everybody. Family drama going home with the kids. So so anyway, Dark Knight Returns, I grew up on this, and it was one of those things where when Batman 89 was happening, it's one of those things where sorry, hold on a second. Finally, sorry guys, this is what happens when you have children. So she's pretty crazy. And Batman 89 was coming out. My brother brought this home, and we were reading X-Men comics and Spider-Man and whatever, and I love that stuff, and I like Batman, but this comic just blew me away. And granted, I couldn't read, right? Like I could barely read. My reading level was never great, and I still bought comics all the time because obviously I looked at the pictures. Frank Miller is such a great storyteller. He could just be like, "Hey, what's up?" Like, I didn't need to read. I could figure it out because he was that good of a storyteller. And this, to me, and growing up, I loved Batman. I liked Batman and Superman, but I was always a Marvel zombie. But this what got me into Batman was Dark Knight Returns, and it was these two pages specifically are just so incredible to me. I think they're some of my favorite pages of all time. When you have Superman, he's in all like the silhouette of all black and the red cape. I mean, mom, chef's kiss. That's beautiful. And then you get, the fight. They start fighting, and that panel, the very bottom right, with Batman gearing up to deliver, I think, one of the best panels of all time of Batman beating Superman is so incredible. And as a kid, knowing Superman is like, who beats Superman? And you see Batman do it, it's like, whoa. And it was transformative of me to see Batman, because it made me realize who Batman was at that time. Like, he's the best, and he can outthink anybody. And just seeing that as a kid, when I think of Batman, people say, what's the first thing you think of Batman? It's the first image I think of is this Batman punching Superman. It's so dynamic and so beautiful. I love it. And again, the lead up is brilliant. It's beautifully done. Again, that wind up is just, I think the wind up is not as good. It's not quite as good, but I think it's so good. I think it's so good. So this to me is one of my favorite action scenes of all time. I think it's incredible. It's influential. It's amazing. Yeah, it's all around fantastic. He's better now. I'm just saying, like, some of his controversial, like Holy Terror, people really want to rip him on that, and that's fair. I'm not gonna. Thank you. She is cute. She's a little insane, but seriously, absolutely. So anyway, I love this. I'm curious what you thought. What's your take on the Dark Knight Returns? These couple pages here.
The Dark Knight Returns is the one comic that gets me into the most trouble when I talk about it.
But I mean, which again,
I really do appreciate it as a comic and what it did in history, etc. I also I mean, but I never grew up with it, so I read it later as like, oh, that thing you need to read. But I, it didn't appeal to me as much. I think there was a little bit of a kick that I got. Oh, it's dark and grim, and
Yeah.
he's coming out of retirement, etc. But it was just, it was a little. Maybe I'm too much of a. There was something about the insistence of what the story wanted to be about that I
Mm,
wasn't buying it. I'm like, it
sure.
was trying to, and I think Miller is similarly overheated in year one, but I like year one as a heated, like an
You're one of
overheated
those
Batman
people.
story.
You prefer
Yeah, and
year one over Dark Knight Returns. No.
I mean, if you want to compare or something like that,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
I think a lot of the thing was also, and I think I've said this before, is that a lot of people said, oh, this brought it back from that campy Adam West, blah blah blah,
Yeah.
and I mean, I don't know, Adam West was ages ago, and I never watched the Adam West Batman, but I mean, when I was reading Batman, and I'm thinking about, Denny O'Neil Batman, etc.
Yeah.
I mean,
Neil
it was
Adams.
pretty
Yeah.
cool. It was pretty dark. It was Neil Adams,
Yeah.
yeah. So that era never seemed to me to be campy, or Batman never needed to be made more gritty and all of that stuff. The things that people called it out for. But I do appreciate the sort of dynamism it has,
Mm,
and I completely agree with you. I think that the action scenes and the sort of silhouettes and those are Frank Miller's strengths, I think, in many ways. And I think
yeah.
whether it's in this book or 300
Mhm.
or
Sin
like
City.
many other things, he kind of really capitalizes on that, and I definitely think that it's extremely influential.
Absolutely.
I'm
Yeah.
not sure, yeah, but like, it's impossible to look at someone like Eduardo Riso, for example, and not say, oh, there's a good amount of Frank Miller influence on the work that they do, and similar things like that. But yes, as a story, Dark Knight Returns to me is more of a. I appreciate it more historically and for what it did
Totally.
and how it
Mhm.
was received than as something that I reach for to read for my
Oh,
own. I mean, I
totally.
still have a copy of it. It's not like, like there are some like 300. I've never felt the need to own it, but Batman Dark Knight Returns, I'm like, no, I need to own that.
No,
So
yeah.
I definitely give it that much respect that I will take it down. But I don't know if I'll sit down and read it from beginning to end unless maybe
Mm.
we have a discussion on it or something like that. Like that might
Ooh.
be a revisiting the Dark Knight Returns and
Mm.
trying to be uh, less whatever I am
I,
about it.
you know what I should do is maybe like sometime in like next year or in this year or whatever, sometimes next year or whatever, I'll do like a big scholar show. I'll get you, I'll get like Alex from Comic Book Historians, I'll get like other people, Joe maybe, and we'll do a big astute like Chris Clow, my best friend on
Sounds
here.
like a nightmare.
No, it sounds amazing.
This is horrible.
No,
What are you talking about?
no, Akshiman, you and Chris are
Yeah,
one.
you want to put me in a room with a whole bunch of Batman scholars? I mean,
No,
that's
no, 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 no,
ridiculous. I mean,
no, no, because
wearing this T-shirt was a mistake. I should never have done that. I'm going back.
no,
I'm going back to my Tintin T-shirts.
because Chris, my best friend co-host, he prefers year one to Dark Knight Returns.
Well,
Like, so he's, which we fight on all the time. I'm
well,
like,
yeah, it's sort of an arbitrary thing to put, like why ever put those two together just because they both happen to be Frank Miller Batman stories? I mean, that's
they're
just
both
why. But
important. They're both important works, though. I mean, and they're very
sure,
close together. I mean, in time frame.
yeah.
So I mean,
V3, that's a terrific pick by off my shelves, of course. But yeah, V3 is the panel layouts in it, the
I'll check it out.
violence in it, and the way it's represented. I'm thinking particularly of that sequence in which those machine gunning robots are massacring those
V3.
rabbits as these animals run. Yeah, it's a Grant Morrison, Frank Whiteley, three
Oh,
issue mini.
oh, okay.
Yeah, it's very
Okay.
cool. It's very good.
I
It's
love Grant Morrison and Frank Whiteley.
yeah,
Obviously. I mean, they're both great.
yeah,
Both great.
yeah, and I think this is before, like this is a little earlier. This is it's obviously after the Authority, but it's before All Star Superman. So
Okay. Okay, I'll check it out. I'll check it out. Off Michelle's thank you. Yeah, so to kind of put a wrap on this, and we'll start heading out here. This has been fantastic. Thank you, Angshuman, for your time. I really appreciate it.
Thank you. It's been
Awesome.
brilliant as always.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, but like this is a very interesting story. I know a couple things you mean. I'm not sure if you were, because I didn't even know this until recently. I had no idea that Dark Knight Returns and Watchmen were coming out like the same time. And it's fascinating that we all think
1986,
about,
I think both of them came out.
Because I want to say that like one fed the other, like because like basically like I want to say Frank was reading Watchmen, was like, well, I gotta like do this to like upend that. Like honestly, like that's what if you listen to Rob Liefeld, which again, hot topic name here, his podcast is incredible. And and he talked about the year this all came out and how like they both fed off each other as they were coming out at the same time. Super interesting. And to me, the Dark Knight Returns, you're right. I don't think this book was made to like from Frank Miller to be like, I gotta make Batman back to his roots. And I'm not sure how much you know about this. Yeah. This is what's fascinating. His inspiration was he was going to be older than Batman, and it freaked him out because he was like when he was 30 years old, he was like, well, I'm the same age as Batman. Like, that's wrong because these characters don't age, right? So it's like he thought, well, I gotta make him an old man. Like I can't be young. I can't be the same age as Batman or Batman or older than Batman. So that was the initial like inspiration of like, what would Batman be like as an older person? Like that was literally, and so that was kind of like through the Frank Millerisms and maybe whatever. But that to me is interesting. That it was, I think it was, because you're right. Like Batman at the time was not like completely bright rainbows and unicorns like it was the Madam West days when those comics were coming out, right? And so Frank Miller was like, oh, actually, here's my inspiration. Sorry, my dog is barking. And here is what we're gonna do. And it was not meant to be like this, whole I'll make Batman dark again. It's kind of like just naturally was happen that way, at least the way I interpret it. So it's just interesting to see the dynamics of like what the perceptions are of the book, because it did definitely to a mainstream audience introduced people who always associated Batman with Adam West or what have you. It made them remind them like, oh, Batman is like dark again, even though Neil Adams and even all these other artists and writers afterwards, like oh my gosh, the guy who created Moon Knight, Doug Mensch, I mean, he did a lot of work, dark work with Batman after that. I mean, Neil Adams and Danny O'Neill, I mean, the list goes on and on. But Frank Miller, I think, just kind of he put it back in the zeitgeist of American culture, and maybe I don't know, sure outside the world too, but that Batman is a dark character. But I don't know if that was his initial intent. And that's why I think it makes the book so good, is I think it just naturally, this is a progression of him as a character, in which these actions.
Absolutely. And I also think that, what people do with something and how they talk about it, so on and so forth, can't all be put on the people who wrote the book, because, so much of that is not their intention or in their control. So absolutely. And yes, as an action sequence and as violence being conducted on the page, that is a superlative example. So.
Yeah. So these are my 3 picks. This is the first one I had to do. This is the first book that came up to mind. So I had to pick it. I had an honorable mention. I should like you. I love your honorable mention.
Of course you did. Of course you had an honorable mention. Of course.
I didn't bring it, but it felt like very too much close. It felt too like.
I'm gonna just grab an honorable mention from my shelves too. I was like, I'm not being left behind on this.
Yeah. No. Hold on. You can't upstage me. No. No, but like it's Spider-Man versus Wolverine. I know it sounds ridiculous. It sounds stupid. But let me tell you right now, I'm just going to tell you, you go back to there's a fight between Spider-Man and Wolverine at the very end of the book. It's written by Christopher Priest. I'm not sure how familiar you are with him, but he used to go by Jim Owsley, which I didn't know that's what he went by. Now he goes by Priest, but he's very prolific, very underrated. I feel, I mean, people know and like him, but I feel like he still doesn't get the credit he deserves. Christopher Priest wrote a fantastic book in Spider-Man versus Wolverine, and it's like hidden by the title, because he just does some great Peter Mary Jane stuff. But there's a fight scene between Wolverine and Spider-Man that's very gruesome and great. And there's it all sets up a beautiful, I'd say beautiful in a very, it's very tragic what happens at the very end. And it really affects Spider-Man to his core. And it's beautifully done and all set up through this brutal fight between Wolverine and Spider-Man. And it's, again, you're probably thinking oh, great. Marvel Zombie talking about, superheroes fighting.
No, I like Spider-Man and Wolverine. I'll have to see the action sequence to, understand what you're saying. But yeah.
I will say, so trust me when I say this. I don't say it lightly that it's just a standard stupid superhero fight. There's actual ramifications from it, and deep ones where I'm it again uses the comic book medium beautifully, and you have to see it to believe it. It's not long. Go read it. It's fantastic. I love it.
All right, I will look it up.
Excellent. This has gone a little, longer than I wanted to, because I feel I could talk forever, but I feel for your time sake. Thank you for coming on.
No, thank you for having me.
This is so much fun. You bring your people. They're super awesome. Thank you for coming on. We're watching.
Thank you for everyone in the chat who joined us here.
I know this again. I wish I had this all the time. I don't have it as much as I want it, but this is fantastic. Everyone, thank you. Angshuman, I say promote yourself, but to me, you are the pinnacle of of comic YouTube. So I have peanuts, but anyway, so please tell people where they can find your stuff at.
You can find me on For the Love of Comics, and where I talk about Tintin and Last Man and Akira. And thank you so much for having me here, Paul. It's been great. I love talking to you because you have this energy and this passion and this love for comics that I can really obviously relate to. And I'll just say that as far as YouTube channels are concerned, it's just make the videos that you want to make. Don't wait until you have a bigger group and all that. Right. It'll be the video that you love the most that will get you those viewers or those views or the people like that. So I don't care about numbers and stuff like that. That's just generally for anyone. Just make the video you want to do. Talk about the books you want to talk about your favorites, because that's what I did with my channel. It's just I want to talk about my favorite comics, so that's what it's about, so I would love to come back and chat anytime you'll have me.
Well, we'll discuss some things later on that we may make something happen, because if you're down for coming somewhat regularly, we may have some fun stuff planned, because I'll take you as much as I can. I'll tell you, I told you I'm selfish. I'll use that situation as much as I can. So thank you for coming on. Thank you. Everyone. Thank you,
everyone.
Yeah, everyone, you've been awesome. Please go do all that stuff. We're off next week because of this show, but then we've got Arkham Asylum by Grant Morrison. We're gonna be covering that in a couple weeks, July 9th.
There's an absolute edition that I'm very unhappy that I missed.
An absolute of that?
Yeah, briefly for one shimmering thing. Usually I don't care, but that was one that I would have liked to have.
I'll tell you my debrief of Arkham Asylum after we log off.
All right.
Everyone, go, as Chris always says, read more comics. Good night, everybody, or good morning.